Kids, imagine not having to go to a bank and ask money for real estate. Well, MC Laubscher and I are going to talk about that exact concept and many more, and maybe even some tax-free specifics, and maybe even some estate planning specifics to help you, the entrepreneur, get that much more rich. How's that sound? Hey, MC, glad you're here, buddy.
Yeah, great to see you. Looking forward to our conversation.
We're going to add some value. I think there's a lot of people, we don't talk about it here at vastsolutionsgroup.com. We don't talk about really, one, insurance, and secondly, tax-free, and three, not having to go to a bank enough. And one of those concepts that kind of wraps that in a bow would be infinite banking, private vault in banking, Nelson Nash banking, et cetera, et cetera. So let's get into that. But first, really quickly, tell us who you are, because I think it's a cool background. Plus, you have a cool accent.
No, appreciate it. My name is MC Laubscher. I'm originally from South Africa. Just came to the United States in 2001. I was playing sports up until 2007, 2008, but became an investor while I was playing sports. In around 2001, purchased my first real estate property. And then as I was learning the real estate game, I had a mentor that showed me the insurance game combined with the real estate game that would truly really throw some rocket fuel on what you're already doing. So I kind of learned an overall strategy as an investor during that time, and I started my firm, Producers Wealth, in 2015, helping business owners and investors implement and execute that exact same strategy. And I also, have an experience in different other asset classes and investing in them, but yeah, overall, I focus on a lot of just creative, alternative wealth strategies and alternative asset classes, investing classes.
Yeah, I like hearing that. So, by the way, what sport? When you threw out you threw out a sport that piqued my interest. What are you talking about?
Rugby. I was a rugby player, so
Like,
which helped a lot in investing, right? So I boxed a little bit as a kid and played some rugby, and played rugby, like I said, up until 2007, 2009. And the first thing they teach you in boxing is not to get your teeth get knocked out, right? Don't get hit in the head. Protect your face. And the second thing is now go knock the other guy's teeth out and go knock his head, right? And rugby, same kind of thing. Is like you got to protect your try line first, play really, really good defense. And if we could do that, now let's get the ball and let's go score on the other end.
yeah,
So I kind of followed that same philosophy when it comes to business, investing, and finance.
that is pretty funny. Did you play league or union, by the way?
I played union, so that's a very good question. So you know the sport. So I played
Yeah.
rugby union. Yeah.
I like to pretend I know everything, just a little bit about everything. Okay, so obviously you outlined some of the things that you're interested in as far as finance. We're the same way. We're kind of, I kind of consider us, kind of alternative, kind of in terms of finance, investments, et cetera, et cetera. We're not like, generally speaking, mutual funds, stocks, bonds. We like to think outside the box for lowering tax liability, helping clients with, increase their net worth. So that's the reason, partially why you're here, because I think if we can add value to some entrepreneurs who might not normally hear about some of our concepts, and now they might like, oh, that concept sounds pretty good. And then if it adds some value to them, that's exactly why we're here. So I totally dig that you're here. Thank you. So
Yeah.
all right, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, what I wanted to say, and the topic that we wanted to discuss, insurance. I would also say like that. A lot of people haven't heard of that necessarily, and or the minute you bring it up, they go, I don't
Mm.
know about that, because think about insurance. Who likes insurance in general? I'm just talking any type of insurance. And if you let's pick car insurance, auto insurance. You
Mm.
pay premiums for such a long time on your car, which is a depreciating asset, and then eventually you get an offender bender or an accident, and now you've paid all these years into it. You call up the insurance company and carrier. First of all, it's a complete it's an arm wrestle to get the money out of them, and then they do, and what happens? Your premiums go up.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't understand. So it has a bad taste initially in people's mouths just when you bring up that topic, and then you bring in life insurance. Wow. I mean, if you ask anybody an opinion about pit bulls, three people, you would have like three different opinions, right? Some people, yeah, pit bulls are cool. Some people, no, absolutely, they have no right to exist. And a third person in the middle with a little bit of sensibility will go, I could see both arguments, but I'm sure there's a happy medium. You bring on life insurance and you throw it to 100 people, you're going to have 100 very, very emotional and very strong opinions about life insurance. I don't know what it is, what it doesn't. So there's a lot of confusion, a lot of misinformation, a lot of misunderstandings about that asset class. Because, like I said, you have a better chance of getting people to agree about pit bulls these days than life insurance, right?
Yeah, that's pretty funny. I mean, when I think of life insurance, I think, no offense, by the way, for the people out there, I think of, people having polyester pants all the way to their armpits, peddling things that might be not good for the client, but really now my ideas change. We helped write a book called The Private Vault with Greg Coons. Sorry, oh my gosh. Um, Called The Private Vault, and it was about infinity investing, and Greg Boots, who wrote the book, and we helped him. It was basically outlining how it makes sense to have as a portion of your portfolio invested in insurance. But it's not really insurance per se, because it's an outlying asset class. Really, it's what you do with the assets in the insurance, which makes for the asset class. In a lot of cases, you can actually make a lot of money because you're getting a couple of things. You're getting, one, a death benefit. Two, you're pulling out the money sometimes tax free. And by the way, even if you die, a lot of money goes to the heirs. It could be an asset protection strategy. It could be an estate planning strategy. There's a lot of benefits to it. And I sometimes forget that. And I used to really forget about it. But it's something I think a lot of people should look at, especially because of the concepts you're talking about, infinity investing, et cetera, et cetera.
It is the Swiss Army knife of financial products out
Yeah.
there. And business owners are not aware of this because usually the advice that they would get is 99% of the time is from a financial professional or advisor. Just give me some of the capital that you're generating in your business, and I'll go diversify it outside of your business in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and some ETFs. And that's about it. Now you're investing in other people's businesses instead of your own. So when it comes to optimizing your efficiency, generating capital in the capacity of a business owner, you're already generating the most efficient income you can if you compare it to a W-2 or a 1099, right? So as a business owner, you have that advantage. Then the second step basically in the process is, well, where do I put this capital now? And when you look at some of the most tax optimized or just efficient places to put capital after you've generated in your business, you find the asset class, because it is an asset class. This is how the ultra wealthy look at it, of life insurance. It is an asset that the bank recognizes it's an asset. So
Mm-hmm.
why does life insurance get all these benefits? Well, it's the bedrock of society. Governments again give incentives for business owners to start and grow businesses, solving problems in the marketplace. They give incentives for people to position capital in life insurance companies, because if they weren't around, I mean, the safety net that they have to throw out will be, a hundredfold. And then on the third step, they then provide incentives for people to invest either back in their businesses, keep growing it, employing more people, which generates more taxes for them in the long run,
Mm-hmm.
or other things like real estate. They need affordable housing. Entrepreneurs and business owners can buy real estate and do that. Energy, they can invest in energy and get the tax benefits because the government needs people to invest and put capital in energy. Where this strategy comes in, the Swiss Army knife of financial vehicles, as I call it, is a place where you put your money in. It's guaranteed, meaning it's never going to go down, regardless of what happens in the markets. It's guaranteed to grow. And then you get dividends if you set it up with mutual carriers, which they've been around since the mid 1800s,
Mm-hmm.
profitable every single year, pay them every single year consecutively. It's around 6% now. So you get dividends, and this growth and dividends is tax free. You're not paying taxes on the growth inside of that policy. The other thing is you have guaranteed access to that cash too. Think about it as a business owner. How do you feel going to a bank every single time for that line of credit or extending a line of credit? Or, I mean, you're always in a terrible position, and they make you put up receivables, assets of the business, all this collateral. So at this point, you can access the cash at any time you want. And I just want to touch base on this too, which is so important. If you're a business owner, look, the economy right now it's great compared to where it could be 12 to 18 months from now. Lawsuits, by the way, skyrocket in bad economies. Just look around
Yeah.
2008, 2009. So this is it's private. It's a private contract. It's also gets asset protection in every state's a little bit different, but in most states it gets asset protection. And then you have the element of the tax-free growth, tax-free access, and then of course when you eventually pass away, there's a tax-free death benefit to your beneficiaries. Now it could help with your family contingency plan. It could help with your business contingency plan.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. It totally makes sense what you're saying. I mean, again, I'm a convert, and we're not talking about it enough. But I'm going to give you one example. I think you and I talked about it before. So I just talked to this client, by the way. He's an attorney in California, and I said, by the way, he was putting $200,000 away last time when you and I spoke. But he reminded me just today. He's like, nah, I'm generally putting $500,000 away into a defined benefit plan, which we help administer. So he's putting $500,000 away into the DB plan. From that, whatever his tax savings are, in this case, instead of me being wrong, again, I thought it was about 80,000, but actually ended up being, he said about $200,000 a year. What he's basically doing is the tax savings that he's getting in his defined benefit plan, he's putting into a policy, and he hasn't yet, but what he's going to end up doing, the $200,000 is going to grow. Let's just say it's worth $1 million, just to be simple. What he's basically going to do is pull that out as an example and then put it into a piece of real estate. I mean, he's a commercial real estate investor, actually hotels. So what he's going to end up doing is leveraging it, let's say 2-to-1, 3-to-1, whatever the number is, and then he's going to get income on it. And then, well, that's what's going to happen. He's going to be able to go and invest in more properties. And he's pretty smart. So he's going to be investing in properties that are hopefully he's buying in low, going to sell later. Plus, he's getting a lot of income out of it. So basically, what he's doing is he's taking advantage of what the government's giving to him in the way of tax deferral because he's putting money in his defined benefit plan. Anyway, bottom line, he's using that strategy of infinite banking, basically, that the government's giving him with the tax deferral, and he's leveraging it by investing in it in real estate. All because, and he hates banks. He hates banks. So this is kind of a way for him to get around banks. He doesn't like knocking on the door of every banker, the banker asking for all this information. Instead, he's basically asking himself for the money, and he's going to go and invest in real estate, in commercial, mainly commercial property. So that totally works out in his case, and that's really what we're talking about. You're basically, instead of going asking for a bank and getting a loan, you're basically going to yourself because you already have the policy. And if it's properly structured, you can make a heck of a lot of money because it's your own money and putting it mainly, I would say, into real estate, et cetera, et cetera. I love that concept.
Yeah, and here's the beauty of this strategy. So when you build up cash value into a policy, let's just say it's $1 million for round numbers of cash value that's in there, and you have an opportunity that comes around now, and now you're trying to access the cash to go and buy and capitalize on that opportunity. Let's just say you need 500,000.
Mm.
When you access the 500,000, you do that through a policy loan or a line of credit. You do not touch that $1 million. So that $1 million that's in there
That's a good point. Yeah.
enjoys uninterrupted tax-free compounding as if you've never touched it.
Right.
And you get to use the 500,000 now to buy the real estate or acquire a competitor, a company. So you have your money doing many different things simultaneously. So it's, I've always heard the phrase in our world, the alternative asset investing world, let your money work for you. Let your money work for you. Yes, let it work hard, but also let it work smart and in different places simultaneously. So you, with one pool of capital, you now have a policy that continues to grow tax free, and you've acquired another asset, if it's a competitor, a business that you just bought, or a piece of real estate.
Yeah.
So that's the power of this stuff. And for business owners too, again, back to the concept of the Swiss Army knife of financial vehicles, is you can actually draw income tax free from this policy if you need it eventually for retirement income. So most business owners, they're listening to this. I talk to them all the time, and I am one. Most people bank that their exit's going to be selling their business either to their children or to someone else, get a massive windfall, and then just live off the interest, and that's it. Sail off into the sunset, right?
Yep.
But if you could do that, hypothetically say that works out and that pans out. That's good. But what if you had like another, I don't know, 1, 5, 10 million bucks tax free in a life insurance policy while you were building that asset to eventually sell it at that particular time? So it's not a choice between, A or B. It's like, hey, let's have them both, and let's have your money work in both places simultaneously.
Well, here's a question for you because I'm asked this, and this is a legit question. So, I had a client that we were not kind of, we were talking to him about the concept, and he said, "What's the perfect avatar for someone to do the infinite banking yourself, et cetera, et cetera?" What would you say as a response to that question?
Yeah, so it all depends. But I mean, if let's just say if you're an employee and you're making $250,000 a year, it's a no-brainer at that
Mm,
point to start to look at, between 10 and 25% of your income into these policies. If you're a business owner and the business is out of the startup phase into like just now the profitable phase, and you're generating, let's just say $1 million of revenue per year, I mean, this is a no-brainer for you at that stage, to look at these options, because at that stage, generating $1 million of revenue, and you've got now probably a couple of employees working for you, whether they're family or not family.
mm.
You got to protect yourself. You got to protect the business. You have something there that's going to have legs. So you got to think about your business then. Step away a little bit, look at the big picture instead of just putting your head down and grinding. Because becoming strategic at that point, I mean, could help you exponentially, like just grow what you're doing at that stage.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. I mean, I threw out I think my response to him was, it was he and his wife, by the way. I think it works really well, really for someone in the 40s and 50s. I think someone who wants to maybe diversify a little bit from, as I mentioned, stocks, bonds, mutual funds. It's because it's kind of an outlier. And I think it's perfect for real estate investors. I mean, because like you say, it's an asset. It's an asset on the balance sheet. Plus, by the way, for someone, let's say in their 50s, it takes care of the insurance component. And I think that's nice to think about. Well, wait a minute. Also for estate planning, if someone's really rich, I mean, I think you're going to, you and I talked about, what's going to be happening here in the not so distant future as far as estate planning issues. But I think it's something to at least consider. And again, I don't think we're doing it enough, but I think it's at least something to consider when you're looking at overall portfolio, as it relates to increasing your assets or taking income in retirement.
You definitely need a volatility buffer and a bucket of cash. It's a hard lesson I learned
Mm.
in 2007, 2008, 2009. So if you have a bucket full of cash and have cash as a portfolio allocation, which you should, I can't think of a better place to put it. So if you think about it, most Americans, and not just Americans, this is people all over the world, where they have their wealth is in their primary residence. Maybe there's a second property, and in the
Hmm.
equity market. That's it. What if you added another bucket of this that provides certainty, predictability, security, and gives you clarity as a business owner? Even if you still have the other buckets, right? Even if you say, you know what, I hear MC, I hear what you're saying, and you make a compelling case, but I'm not ready to, get out of the equity market and so forth. And I'm like, no problem, but just make sure that not everything is in there, or not everything is just in real estate. How about you put something aside that you can access and dip into when there is big shakeups in the markets? Because to think that it doesn't happen, it's that would be ludicrous. Market
Yeah.
cycles are there. Markets go up, down, and sideways. They can only do three things, and they do them throughout a cycle and a process, usually of about 10 to 15 years. So, when those downside comes, you want to be prepared for it.
Yeah, and I think insurance is one way to have a downside protection. By the way, I should mention who we are. My name is Kenner French with VastSolutionsGroup.com. You're watching and listening to the Vast Voice, telling business secrets to entrepreneurs. He's MC Laubscher. He is, well, no, why don't you go ahead and introduce how to get a hold of you, and then we can continue on.
Yeah, producerswealth.com/vast voice, because I put something together just for your listeners. Just
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. So it's producerswealth.com is the website, but producerswealth.com/vast voice. You'll have, a summary of some of the things that I shared on the show for folks that want to learn more.
Thank you. Yeah, why don't you talk a little bit about your website? And I think you have if I remember correctly, you have some tools on the website that can add some value to the viewers and listeners out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So what they'll find at producerswealth.com/vast voice is I just published a book that was the #1 seller on Amazon
That's my boy. Nice job, MC.
so it's Get Wealthy for Sure. So Get Wealthy for Sure, the #1 financial strategy for business owners to multiply wealth predictably. So they could check that out. There's a link right there. What I'm doing right now is I'm giving away a paperback copy of the book, just pay for shipping, so they can get that there. We also have presentations on it, ranging from infinite banking, also premium financing, which
Oh,
is a very, very interesting conversation. So I know you and I can touch base on that quickly, but yeah, all the other different strategies, because we have business owners that are generating cash, they're positioning cash, they're growing their businesses, investors generating cash, positioning it, and growing their investments. But what we also share with everybody that comes into our world is all of the other blind spots, right? Asset protection, and then of course tax strategy, big picture, especially when it comes to estate taxes.
yeah, I'm so glad you brought up so many things. There's so many things behind the curtain there. Because premium finance, we touched on it before when you and I spoke, but premium finance, that's a big thing that we should be talking about much more. And it also is, it enhances infinite banking. So premium finance, basically, I'll just say in a nutshell, you're getting a loan to be able to pay for your premium. You know, you have to have sometimes a illiquid or a liquid entity to use as leverage, as an example, or hopefully have some stocks, bonds, cash to use as leverage. But man, you can multiply. I mean, for one, you get life insurance pretty darn cheap, right? Because it's basically you're getting a loan. Plus two, it's not a cash outlay, so you get to, who knows, keep your money in your pocket and invest in other real estate, as an example. And that's pretty good. I'm glad you brought that up. It's something that more of our people should look at. Usually, it's for people with high net worth, but it's called premium finance. But why don't you go ahead and chat about how you see premium finance as it relates to our market, because you and I have basically the same market.
Yeah, so if you have a net worth right now of 15 to 20 million dollars, and there might be people that have 10, that they're going to get there pretty quickly. I mean, you start to really grow your wealth when you really hit 10. But if you're between 15 and 20, this is something that you should hear about right now.
Mm,
We are speaking to you.
yeah.
So right now, at in 2024 and 2025, still the estate tax exemption that is available to someone and their spouse is about 25.84 million, is basically, that's your, for you and your spouse. So it's about 12.92 million per person, right? So let's just say it's 26 million. Okay, round it up nicely. That's where we're at right now. So if you had a net worth of $20 million, and you pass away right now in 2024, 2025, you're fine. After January 1st, 2026, that gets cut in half. So then all of a sudden it goes to 13, and it goes to 6.5 per person. Now, if something should happen, there's an estate tax. There's an estate tax event happening right there. So, how does premium financing solve this whole thing? So, you can establish irrevocable trusts. You can put a life insurance policy inside of a trust, and this irrevocable trust, by the way, is out of your estate. You don't you don't own or control it.
Mm-hmm.
And the life insurance policy is purchased by borrowing the money from an institution or a family office. And this
Mm-hmm.
is, by the way, this is how you can get around gifting, because gifting, it's about the gift tax exclusion is around $17,000 per year,
Mm-hmm.
per child, grandchild, and so I mean you could spread it around, but that's still not going to get you anywhere near that if you're
Yep.
between 15 and 20 million. And lifetime exemption is still again around 12.92 million. So yeah,
Yep.
you can what you can do is you can borrow the money, buy the policy, get around all of those restrictions, and then you basically use the money that you borrowed to use towards the premiums. And sometimes you could fund it for 10 years of premiums, and in
Mm-hmm.
the 11th or the 12th year you take a policy loan from that policy, and you pay back the institution or the family office that you borrowed it from, and now you own the policy free and clear outside of your estate in that irrevocable trust, which
Yep.
then upon your passing can then be used to pay off estate taxes. So there's a lot of creative strategies, but it's a very, very, very powerful concept that, if done and correctly and implemented and executed correctly, helps a lot.
And by the way, the technical element of these policies or of these strategies, it's tough, right? That's why I think you need someone who's done them, who understands. I mean, luckily we have an attorney. We have two, actually three attorneys who are in house to help us, navigate the waters, because it could get really, really complex. And I know you have a staff that can help you as well. And if you're not working with someone who who might not understand some of the specifics, but they just kind of dabble in it, once every 5 years, there could be issues, because you have to make sure the trusts are in place. You have to make sure that you're getting loans from the right entities based on the right asset classes, et cetera. It can get pretty technical, so you do have to work with some studs. Well, you and I. Um,
No, that's a great point, because this is the last thing that you want to do. You do not want to find a professional on TikTok, and because they make great and exciting videos there, and now that's the legal, tax, and insurance advice that you're going to
that was good.
follow, because
Yeah.
there's quite a bit of them there. And
Yeah.
I can tell you that there's a lot of stuff there. I've seen all these videos, and I just shake my head. You want to know work with people that know exactly what they're doing and how to implement and execute this.
Yeah, and by the way, I like to think we know what we're doing. We've been doing this since '69. Were started by a guy named Gary Coons, who was, he was a life insurance slash financial professional, and he built this practice. And now I took it over in 2006, and we have a staff of people who know, again, out of the box thinking, who know what's going on as far as some of the alternative assets in terms of investments, because I think that's it. Anyone could, 95% of the people can, go down mainstream, but it's the main street, I should say, but it's the other parts, the off streets that are really going to make a path towards success. So, okay, now we've talked about, premium finance. We've talked about infinite banking. What are some of the investment products, generally speaking, that you believe in for both products, if that makes sense? Or meaning which life insurance carriers or which life insurance products or strategies within those products do you think make sense for what you're doing?
Yeah, so with infinite banking and premium financing, we use mutual life insurance carriers.
Okay.
So mutual life insurance carriers, they've been around since the mid 1800s.
Yeah.
They're not listed on the stock exchanges like stock insurance carriers. We just like their approach and their how they manage their business. It's very
Mm.
much aligned with the policyholders. And then as far as vehicles, for infinite banking, we use whole life, and it's
Mm.
a very specifically designed whole life policy. And the same for our premium financing. And we
Mm.
like the predictability, we like the dividends, yeah, and just the certainty of it. We're when there's other products I know that people talk about too, and make a good case and for, but they are tied to market. So sometimes I like to take that unknown variable off the table, and it
Mm.
just makes things much more easier to manage from a predictability standpoint, certainty, and a clarity standpoint.
I think it makes sense what you're saying. I think for us, for the old, maybe the more mature clients, we use whole life. Sometimes for the younger clients, we'll have them do an IUL, index universal life, which is tied to an index with a downside. But I think it really depends on the circumstance. But I would say just in general, and as far as the carriers are, each carrier really is, the better carrier is determined by the situation. There's no one size fits all, at least for us. Same thing with product or strategy, same thing. And I think that again, that's why you want to work with someone who really knows what's going on. And I feel pretty comfortable. We have CPAs, we have obviously an in-house, we have lawyers in-house, and I know you have some people with whom you work who are of that same ilk, who senior advisors, et cetera, et cetera. You want to talk about some of your strategic alliances in that regard?
Yeah, we have a network of attorneys, tax professionals, and so forth that is part of our team, and then help us implement and execute these. So we're all on the same page, and that's why I appreciate what you guys have over there too. Everybody's on the same page,
No.
and this is very, very important. If you're a business owner listening to this, this is actually a very important piece, that everybody knows your strategy and they're all working towards helping you implement and execute it, so they're on the same page. Sometimes when you have different philosophies, approaches, or they just are not just familiar with it, things could go pear-shaped,
Hmm.
and they tend to do in that regard. So you want to have everybody on the same page and understand what you're looking to accomplish and work towards your goals. So that's the big thing, because yeah, and I mean, you could try to do all these things and have it together, but if you don't have the team to execute it, it's going to be hard.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So we've talked about infinite banking and we've talked about premium finance. Any other specific products or services that you believe in that can help, that are alternative that can help someone with a high net worth, you know, someone who, our listeners and viewers, very high net worth, real estate investors, solopreneurs. Any other suggestions you have out there?
Yeah, so I mean, I like to keep it simple. I think those two strategies, infinite banking and premium finance life insurance, is what I'll stick to. There's some other great ones, which is not in our wheelhouse, like private placement,
Mm,
life insurance. So, yeah,
mhm.
it's yeah, there's some great other strategies, but yeah, we keep it simple. We focus on two. We try to do these two as best as we can, and we get
Mm.
try to be a master of those too.
All right. So, what's one example, either one of those services or products? What's one example where you've totally helped out a client, meaning they came in? I'm making this up. I'm trying to think of a gross example. Someone who had all this money and they didn't know they could get loans for insurance, or someone who didn't know anything about infinite banking, and all of a sudden you've completely changed their life. Now they're a billionaire. That's obviously an exaggeration, but I'm just looking for a good example, case example, so we can illustrate it to the people out there, and maybe it would help them.
Yeah, I would give this example with the infinite banking. So let's just say somebody was grossing just over $1 million a year in their business. They started working with us. They put about $250,000 a year just in their infinite banking system. In
Okay.
the first couple of years, it just starts to build up. You already have a credit line established 30 days after setting up the policy correctly. So you're probably going to access about between 70 to 80% of that premium after 30 days that you just put in. So, and right away, they now had a credit line established, and they still had one with a bank, right? But they could rely less and less on that. With 3, 4 years into it, I'm just thinking of a specific client right now. They don't even bother with a bank anymore. They have
Hmm.
a system up and running with sufficient capital to fund their business, hire employees, and so forth. So, what it did for them is it just gave them a lot of certainty, predictability, security. They know what they have. They know what they have guaranteed access to. They know where that policy is going to take them 10,
Hmm.
15, 20 years from now. They know on an exit, which their goal is still to sell the business, what they're going to have tax free in a life insurance policy. And they got to use it to running their business during their lifetime, and then eventually sell their business. They walk away with the windfall from the business and a life insurance policy, tax
Yeah.
free. So that's and as far as the premium life insurance, you know, that part of it is interesting. I always say we find people that have really good money problems, really good ones.
What do you
There's
mean? I might like that. What do you mean by
there's
that?
there's really bad money problems like lack of it or owing a ton of money to the IRS and all that kind of stuff. We can't really help you with the bad ones, but the
Mm,
good ones is, hey, I just had a significant spike in the valuation of my company. Our estate is now, 50, 60 million bucks. We're
mhm,
looking at some issues now with taxes. And if we keep growing at this rate, this is probably where we're going to be 10, 15, 20 years from now. That's a really good money problem
I
to
see.
solve. So what you can then do is, working with our team of lawyers and tax professionals, we could put together an irrevocable trust, put a policy in there, fund it, with money borrowed from either an institution or a family office, and have that in there so that if that person passes away, the children, they don't have to deal with a massive estate tax. All that stuff will be taken care of. So you have your continuity plan for the family done. Upon their passing, that's one. It's
Mm,
one of the things that it's so bad to see because I sometimes I see people in those situations. They come to us after the fact, and we've seen it. But their dad or their mom worked so hard, build a fortune. There wasn't planning in place because they didn't know existed, and then all of a
mm,
sudden they paused, and now everybody's like, "Well, how do we pay 10, 15,
yeah.
20? In some cases, the highest I've seen, 45 million bucks in taxes, estate taxes. So you don't want to put yourself in those situations.
I think what's funny is talking about both insurance strategies. Again, I used to think of them as insurance guys, polyester, but and I think sometimes I think because I thought that because people make a lot of money. Sales guys, insurance sales guys make a huge amount of money on insurance. But at the same time, the way we do it, I think the way you do it, if you
Yep.
they get paid on the death benefit. I'll just say it. They get paid on the death benefit, meaning life insurance people get paid on the death benefit. But the
Yeah.
way I think you and I both do it, if you there's ways to dial down with either the company or the policy, dial down the death benefit. So a lot of the cash that goes into the policy is cash value that can be used for, as an example, real estate in our world, right? So
Yep.
it's beneficial for the client. So when they, back in the old days, let's say someone will look at the policy and they're like, oh my gosh, this doesn't help me. Well, those policies usually help the business owner, in that case, the insurance provider, the insurance salesperson. Well, with us and you, I think if you dial down the death benefit, you end up lowering the, if you will, the fees to the business owner, in this case, to the client, and it ends up growing and it's totally in their benefit. So it's at least worth looking at depending on the circumstances. And then what I would say is just, it's free to ask, generally, to ask your insurance provider, insurance salesperson, hey, what do you think of this strategy? And if they don't, who knows, maybe it doesn't look good because they have such a high death benefit. But if you're working with you or I, maybe, we'll show them with the low death benefit. Even though it doesn't really help us, it helps the client, because we work on referrals. So we want to get as many referrals as possible. So we don't make as much money as, the typical agent out there, because they have a high death benefit. But at least ask your agent what their thoughts are in these two strategies. And by the way, most people don't know anything about premium finance. That's you got to be pretty experienced. I mean, I'm pretty darn impressed that you know what that is. You know what I mean?
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I would say the way that we do it, we cut our commissions by 70 to 80%,
Yeah.
because you're bringing down the death benefit so much
Right.
to build the supercharged savings vehicle. And that's why I would also say to folks too that there's different levels of, or different ways that people buy insurance. So when people come to me and they say, "Hey, Dave Ramsey says, this is terrible and it's the worst
Yeah.
place to put money, and
Yeah.
the commissions are so high," I agree with like 98% of what Dave says, because Dave is talking about insurance is sold at retail to the general public, and it
Yeah.
sucks, right? It does.
That's exactly it.
But what we're talking about is more, this is like a completely different way of buying
Yeah.
insurance. This is how the ultra wealthy buys it. We're talking about higher net worth folks. They don't buy
Yeah.
retail. It's the same as in real estate, where you have folks that they'll buy, they'll buy at retails. Other folks buy from at wholesale prices, basically. So there's different levels of how you buy things, and you're working with different professionals too. When you buy that, like you were just saying, the insurance guy with walking door to door selling in the old days, the meme.
Yeah.
I always jokingly say, when you go to a cocktail party and somebody says, "Oh, so what do you do?" And someone's like, "Oh, well, I'm a rocket scientist." You're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, there's some follow up questions." "Oh, I'm a medical doctor." "Oh, what medicine do you specialize in? Where did you go?" Like, there's great follow up questions. You say, somebody talks to you and they say, "So what do you do?" So we're like, "Oh, we're in the life insurance business." You get kind of a blank stare, and then you're like, "I got to go to the bathroom.
Yes.
Nice
See you,
meeting
dude. Yeah.
you."
That's a very good point. That is a very good point.
Yeah,
But
so
we
all the memes are true.
Yeah, that's pretty good. But by the way, we don't even, we're tax planners, tax providers. I mean, I
Yep,
mean, insurance is just one component, but again, we're not mentioning it probably enough, which we should be, but it's just one component that I think sets people apart, especially, and by the way, you bring up a good point. This isn't what we're talking about, is for the wholesale, meaning it's not really for the retail marketplace.
yep,
And I think that you're going to get retail pricing if you're in the retail marketplace. And with what we're talking about, you getting better pricing, more beneficial for the client, as an example. And I think, I don't even know if there's whatever, if you can have $1 million and do premium finance. I mean, our market is the higher net worth. And I think that it's different. It's totally different than, the guy who's going to knock on your door, the girl who's going to knock on your door and say, here, I'm selling you a life insurance policy. So it's worth looking at. It really is.
yeah, absolutely. Like you said, the strategies there. Again, I would look at this if you're a business owner generating over $1 million in revenue, and then
Yeah.
premium financing 15 to 20 million bucks. I mean, because you have to have some collateral to put up in the beginning of the years too, just from a lending standpoint. So it isn't for everyone. It's very, very powerful. If you are a business owner that fit into those in that kind of like criteria, it's definitely something to look into. You're not going to find this, again, from a just from your average run-of-the-mill financial advisor. So your Merrill guy or gal is not telling you about any of these strategies.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So why don't we let's get close to wrapping up. So one last time, mention who you are and how to get a hold of you, and then we're going to close the door.
Absolutely. MC Laubscher with Producers Wealth. And just check out the page that we set up for all of the listeners at producerswealth.com/vast voice. On there, you'll see a link to all of our presentations that we do. You can also grab a copy of my new #1 Amazon best-selling book, Get Wealthy for Sure. There's a link to that. And then there's also a link if anybody wants to have a conversation with us.
And once again, kids, this is Kenneth French, obviously, vastsolutionsgroup.com, Vast Voice, telling business secrets to entrepreneurs. Really appreciate you guys spending time with us. You could be watching, reading, you could be doing a lot of other things. Instead, you're hanging out with us. Really do appreciate it with all my heart. Once again, Kenneth French, and I'm out.